Okay, hi guys. Today we are gonna read more Toaru Majutsu no Index. We're gonna read the last few bits. I think we can finish today since I've been reading about 30 pages per day, so I think that would be it because we're on page 168 right now, and the book ends on 198 at page 198. So let's get started. I'll just tweet out that I'm streaming. Actually, let me do this on my phone because I'm still not signed in on Twitter. It's being weird, so I'll do it on my phone. And I'll go to Twitter. And then I'll just share it. Okay, so let's get started with reading. Okay, I'm gonna exit this. With a light noise, all strength left Index's hand and fell atop the futon. Having passed out once more, Index looked like a corpse. But Kamiju softly bit his lip as he looked at Index's feverish face. What kind of horrible ending is this? He tasted blood from where he was biting his lip. He hated how he knew what was happening was wrong, and yet he was so powerless to stop it. Yes, Kamiju could not do anything. He could not do anything but about the 103,000 grimoires taking up 85% of Index's brain, or to protect the memories filling up the 15% left over, huh? As hopeless thoughts raced through his mind, Kamiju suddenly felt something was off. 85%? Kamiju looked back at Index's feverish face. 85%, yes, that was what Kanzaki had said. 85% of Index's brain was filled with the 103,000 grimoires she had memorized. The pressure that put on her brain meant she could only fit a year's worth of memories in the remaining 15%. If she added any more memories than that, her brain would burst. But wait a second. How could 15% only hold a year's worth of memories? Kamiju had no idea how rare a condition a perfect memory was. However, he was pretty sure it was not so rare that Index was the only person in the world with the condition. And the others with the perfect memory did not use some ridiculous method like magic to erase their memories. If it was true that 15% of their brain could hold only a year's worth of memories, that means they die at about 6 or 7 years old. If the condition was like some kind of incurable disease in that way, wouldn't it be more well known? Also, where had Kanzaki gotten those figures of 85% and 15%? Who had told her that? Was the information about 85% of the brain even accurate? They were tricked. What if Kanzaki actually knew nothing about neuroscience? What if she had simply accepted what her superiors in the church had told her? Kamiju had a very bad feeling. He rushed over to the back phone in the corner of the room. Komoe-sensei was out somewhere. He had searched all over the room and found her cell phone number not too long before, so that was not an issue. The mechanical ring sound that had a way of really aggravating people continued for a bit. Kamiju had a feeling something was mistaken in Kanzaki's description of a perfect memory. What if that mistake was intentionally put there by the church? They might be hiding some kind of secret there. With a static-like noise, the phone connected. Sensei, Kamiju shouted almost entirely reflexively. Oh, is that you, Kamiju-chan? You should not be using my phone. You sound happy. Yes, I am at public right now. I am at a public bath right now. I have a coffee milk in one hand while I test out a new massage chair. Yes. Kamiju thought he was about to crush the receiver at his grip, but Index's situation was more important at that moment. Sensei, please just listen quietly to what I have to say. The truth is, Kamiju asked about perfect memories. What were they? Did a year's worth of memories really use up 15% of the brain? In other words, was it a condition that one's lifespan at only 6 or 7 years? Of course not, Kamui-sensei cut it all down in one short sentence. It is true that a perfect memory makes you unable to forget garbage memories like the flyer for a sale from last year at a supermarket, but it isn't like the brain can burst from that. They merely bring their 100 years worth of memories with them to their grave. The human brain can hold up to 140 years worth of memories after all. Kamiju's heart skipped a beat. But what if they were learning things at a tremendous rate? Like, what if they used their memory ability to memorize all the books in a library? Would their brain burst then? Sighed Kamiju-chan. I can see why you fail in all your development lessons, said Kamui-sensei happily. Listen up, Kamiju-chan. People do not have just one type of memory. Things like language and knowledge fall under semantic memories. Things like growing accustomed to certain actions falls under procedural memories, and what we most often think of as memories fall under episodic memories. These are all sorts of types, all sorts. Sensei, I don't really understand what you mean. Basically, Kamui-sensei loved to explain things, so she was delighted. Each type of memory goes into different containers, each of it like burnable trash and unburnable trash. If you get hit on the head and get amnesia, you don't just start talking gibberish and crawling around on the ground, right? So, yes, no matter how many library books the person memorized, that would only increase the amount of semantic memory. According to neuroscience, it is absolutely impossible for that to overwhelm the person's episodic memory. Kamiju felt like he had received that supposed hit on the head. The receiver slipped from his hand. The fallen receiver struck the hook, ending the call, but Kamiju no longer had time to care. The church had lied to Kanzaki. Index's perfect memory was not a danger to her life, but why? Kamiju muttered in stunned shock. Yes, why would the church lie and say Index would die in a year when that was not true? Also, the suffering Index was going through before Kamiju's eyes certainly did not look like a lie. If it was not being caused by her perfect memory, then why was she suffering? Ha! After thinking that far, Kamiju suddenly laughed out loud. Yes, the church had put a collar on Index, a collar that made her require maintenance from the church every year to survive. A collar that assured that Index would not use the 103,000 grimoires she had to betray them. What if Index did not need the techniques and spells of the church to survive? What if she could perfectly well live on her own without the help of the church? In that case, the church would never be able to leave Index be. If she could just go off and disappear with the 103,000 grimoires, they would feel the need to put a collar on her. To repeat, the church had put a collar on Index. That made things simple. There had originally been nothing wrong with Index's head, but the church had done something to it. Haha. For example, what if they had done something similar to filling the bottom of a 10-liter bucket with cement, so only a liter of water could fit? They had done something to Index's head so her brain would burst after only a year's worth of memories. That way, Index had to rely on the techniques and spells of the church. The way Index's comrades would have to choke back tears and do what the church wanted. They had put together a devilish program that took even human kindness and sympathy into account. But that did not matter. But that doesn't matter. Yes, it really does not matter. What mattered and what he had to worry about was just one thing. That was the identity of the church's security, that was making Index suffer. Academy City that controlled the Espers like Kamiju was the cutting edge of science. What was it that Necessarius that controlled those magicians? Was it the cutting edge or in the same way? Yes, the supernatural power known as magic. And Kamiju and Kamijo Tuma's right hand could negate that with a touch, even if it was the systems of God. In that room with no clock, Kamijo wondered what time it was. He probably did not have much time left until the ceremony began. He looked over to the apartment door. If he told the truth to the magician on the other side of that door, would they believe him? The answer was no. Kamijo was just a high school student. He did not have a medical license in neuroscience, and his relationship with the magicians might as well have been called enemies. He doubted they would believe him. He doubted they would believe him. Kamijo lowered his gaze. He looked at Index, who was sprawled out on the futon. She was soaked all over with an unpleasant sweat, and her silver hair looked like a bucket of water that had been dumped on her. Her face was feverish red, and her eyebrows occasionally moved in pain. When that girl is suffering before your very eyes, can you take this from her if you believe in so much of your own power, then negate it, you mutant who thinks he's a hero? Kamijo gave a slight smile at the words Style had beat him back with before. The world has changed enough that he could smile at it. I don't just think I'm a hero. Still smiling, he removed the white bandages thoroughly wrapped around his right hand. If it was as if he was removing a seal from the hand. I will be the hero. He spoke, he smiled, and he pressed his battered right hand against Index's forehead. While he said it could negate even the systems of God, he had thought that it was a useless right hand that would not let him defeat even a single delinquent, would not raise his score on tests, and would not make him popular with girls. But there was one thing it could do. If it could save a girl who was suffering before his very eyes, it had a most wonderful power. Nothing happened. Nothing at all happened. There was no light or noise, but the magic the church had put on Index. There was no light or noise, but had the magic the church had put on Index been negated? No. Index was still grimacing like she was in pain. It certainly seemed like nothing had happened. Kamijo looked puzzled and touched her on the cheek and the back of the head, but nothing happened. Nothing changed, but he did remember something. Kamijo had already touched Index a few times. For instance, he had touched her all over when carrying her from the dorm building after punching out Style, when Index revealed her identity from within the futon. Kamijo had lightly struck her on the forehead, but of course nothing had happened. Kamijo looked puzzled. He did not think he had been wrong. Also, he doubted there was some supernatural power that his right hand could not negate. In that case, there was some part of Index. Was there some part of Index he had not touched? His mind immediately jumped to a very inappropriate place, but he forced back on track. Okay. However, he could not think of any other place than that. If it was magic that was afflicting Index, and there was no magic Kamijo's right hand could not negate, then he could only think of his right hand had yet to touch it. Then he could only think that his right hand yet to touch it. But then where was it? Kamijo looked down at Index's feverish face. Since the magic had to do with memories, would the magic be located on her head or somewhere near her head? If there was a magic circle carved into the inside of her skull, when Kamijo would have to just give up. If it was inside her body, he could not exactly touch it with his finger that was covered in germs, but Kamijo looked at Index's face once more. Her eyebrows were moving in pain, her eyes were held tightly, and her nose was covered in mud-like sweat. Ignoring all that, Kamijo lowered his gaze to her cute lips, taking shallow breaths. Kamijo slipped his right thumb and forefinger between those lips and forced her mouth open, the back of her throat. Due to the protection of the skull, that was closer to her brain than the back of her head. Also, people would never see it, and no one was like to touch it. At the back of her dark red throat was a single eerie mark that something from the horoscope that was like something from the horoscopes on TV. The mark was carved in pure black. Kamiju narrowed his eyes once, gathered his resolve, and then shoved his hand into the girl's mouth. The mouth wriggled like it was a different creature altogether as his fingers slipped inside. The oddly warm saliva wrapped around his fingers. The settling feeling of her tongue made Kamiju hesitate for an instant, but he then pressed his fingers in the rest of the way to jab at the back of Index's throat. It seemed to Kamiju that Index shuddered violently with a powerful urge to vomit. Kamiju felt a slight shock in his right index finger as if from static electricity. At the same time, at that moment, his right hand was blown forcefully backwards. Ga, a great number of drops of blood dripped onto the futon and tatami mats. It had felt like his wrist had been shot by a handgun, so Kamiju instinctually looked down at his right hand. The wounds Kanzaki had given him had reopened, and fresh blood was audibly dripping down onto the tatami mats. As he held his hand up before his face, he noticed something beyond it. As Index lay simply in the futon, her eyes silently opened, and they glowed red. It was not the color of her eyeballs. Blood-red magic circles floating inside her eyes were glowing. Not good. A chill instinctually ran down Kamiju's spine. He did not even have time to hold his destroyed right hand up. Index's eyes glowed a frightening red, and something exploded. With a tremendous shock, Kamiju struck the bookcase. The wooden planks making of the bookcase were smashed apart, and all the books thundered down to the floor. An intense pain rushed over Kamiju's body, as if all his joints had been smashed to pieces, along with the bookcase. Trembling, Kamiju just barely managed to stand back up as his legs were about to collapse underneath him. The metallic taste of blood was mixed in with saliva in his mouth. Warning: Chapter 3, Verse 2. All barriers for Index Librorum Prohibitorum's collar from first to third had been breached. Preparing to regenerate failed. The collar cannot self-regenerate, switching priority to eliminating the intruder and forced to protect the 103,000 grimoires. Kamiju looked at what lay before him. Index slowly stood up in an unsettling manner, and that made it look like she had no bones or joints, and was simply a sack filled with jelly. The crimson magic circles in her eyes pierced Kamiju. While they were technically eyes, Kamiju found it difficult to think of them as such. They had no human light and no feminine warmth. Kamiju had seen those eyes before, when the girl's back had been sliced open by Kanzaki, and she collapsed in front of the student dorm. She had spoken about runes like a machine. They were the eyes she had at the time. I have no magic power, so I can't use it. Come to think of it, there was one thing I forgot to ask you, Kamiju muttered under his breath as he clenched his battered right fist. If you're not an expert, why is it you have no magic power? The answer to that question was most likely what lay before him. The church had prepared multiple layers of security. If someone found out about that secret of her perfect memory and tried to remove the collar, Index would automatically use her 103,000 grimoires to use the powerful magic held within order to literally keep the person who knew the truth from saying anything ever again. All the Index's magical power was put into running that auto defense system. Using the 103,000 grimoires to determine the magic spell used to damage the barrier failed. The specific magic cannot be determined. Putting together an anti-intruder local weapon to expose the composition of the spell, Index tilted her head like she was a corpse being controlled via strings. The magic expected to be most effective on the specific intruder has been put together. Proceeding to activate the special magic known as St. George's Sanctuary to destroy the intruder. With a tremendous noise, the two magic circles in Index's eyes grew all at once. Two magic circles over 2 meters across were now positioned in front of Index's face. Each was fixed in place with its center over one of her eyes, so the magic circles would move through the air even when she slightly moved her head. Index saying something that was beyond human comprehension. For an instant, the two magic circles centered on her eyes glowed before exploding. More specifically, it seemed like an explosion of high-voltage electricity occurred in a point in space between Index's eyes, and lightning scattered in every direction. However, rather than bluish-white electricity, the lightning looked pitch black. It is a very unscientific description, but it looked like space half that cracked open. Centered on the point where the two magic circles crossed, pitch black cracks in space itself spread out in all directions and to the edges of the room. It was like a window that had been shot by a bullet. It almost looked like a type of barrier preventing anyone from getting near Index. Something that seemed to be pulsating swelled up from within the cracks. A beast-like scent wafted from the slight opening created by the pitch-black cracks. Kamiju suddenly knew. This was not based on theory or logic, nor was it based on reason or sense. Something like his base instincts were shouting it at him. He did not know what exactly the thing within the cracks was. However, he knew that seeing it, viewing it directly and honestly would be enough to destroy that being that was Kamiju Toma. Kamiju trembled. The cracks spread and spread and spread and spread. Even though he knew what was within was approaching, he could not move. He trembled some more. And he truly did tremble after all. He just had to defeat whatever that was. And he was alone, had the hand that could not save Index. Ha 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 ha. That was why he trembled with delight. Was he afraid? Of course not. After all, he had been waiting for this moment for so long. Well, he said it could negate even the systems of God. His hand was so useless, it would not let him defeat a single delinquent, would not raise his scores on tests, and would not make him popular with girls. When a girl's back had been sliced open due to him, when he had forced to leave the apartment so as not to interfere with the recovery magic, and when the wire using samurai girl had been him within an inch of his life, he had cursed his own powerlessness and while wishing all the while that he could save that girl. It was not that he particularly wanted to become the hero of the story. It was that he held the power in his right hand to negate and tear his too cruel story to pieces. He was only 4 meters away. If he touched that girl just once more, he could bring it all to an end. That was why Kamiju ran toward the cracks and toward Index, who stood beyond them. He clenched his right fist. He clenched it so he could negate the ever-ending and horribly, horribly boring ending of that cruel story. At the same time, the cracks spread out all at once, opened. It looked as painful as a virgin's hymen that being forcibly ripped open. The giant cracks opened wide enough to reach the large edges of the room, and the thing inside peered out. A pillar of light shot from within the cracks. It looked something like a laser. Laser beam about a 10-meter across. The light was so pure, a white it looked like it had been melted by the sun. The instant it shot out at him, Kamichu thrust the battered right hand out in front of his face. The impact was like a piece of meat being pressed against a hot metal sheet. However, there was no pain and no heat, like it was a pillar of water coming from a fire hose that was being repelled by a clear wall. The pillar of light scattered in every direction, when it struck Kamichu's right hand. Even so, the pillar of light itself was not completely negated. Just like the styles in the Sentius, it seemed to have no end, no matter how often he negated it. He felt planted on the tatami mats. Oh shoot, I'm so tired. Tatami mats were pushed slowly backwards, and his right hand felt like it would be blown away by the great pressure. No, that isn't what this is. Kamichu grabbed his right wrist with his empty left hand. He felt like a stinging pain in the palm of his right hand. The magic was eating into it. His right hand could not deal with it fast enough. So the pillar of light was approaching millimeter by millimeter. This isn't just a huge mass. This isn't just a large mass. Each individual piece of light is something different. It was possible Index was using her 103,000 grimoires to use 103,000 different types of magic at the same time. Each individual grimoire had held instant death, and she was using them all at once. Suddenly, Kamichu heard some noise from the other side of the apartment. Have they only now noticed something's wrong? Damn it. Oh, whoops. The door swung open and two magicians charged in. Damn it, what are you doing? You're still struggling in? Styles started to shout, but his breath caught in his throat and like he had been punched in the back. The sight of the pillar of light and Index who had fired it made him look like his heart had stopped. Kanzaki, who had seemed so superior and powerful before, looked utterly taken aback by the scene displayed before her. Dragon breath? It can't be. How is she using magic? Oh, and how is she using magic? Kamichu did not turn around. While it was true he was hardly in a situation where he could turn around, it had more to do with him not wanting to take his eyes off of Index. Hey, do you know what this pillar of light is? And so he shouted at them without turning around. What is it called? What is it? What's its weakness? What should I do? Explain each and every step from start to finish. But what is... God, you piss me off. Isn't it obvious that if Index is using magic, that means the church was lying when they told you Index could not use magic? Kamichu shuddered while blowing away the pillar of light. Oh, and the whole thing about Index having to have her memories erased every year. That was another lie. The church was the one limiting her. So if I negate this thing, you won't have to erase her memories anymore. Kamichu's feet slowly but surely slid backwards. The power behind the pillar of light nightmarishly shouted as if to rip up his toes that were digging into the tatami mat. Calm down. And think about this rationally. Do you think that the people who created the cruel system behind Index would kindly tell their subordinates the whole truth, of the situation. Look at the reality before your eyes. Ask Index herself if you like. The two magicians blankly stared at Index, who stood beyond the cracks. St. George's Sanctuary is showing no effect against the intruder, switching to another spell and continuing the destruction of the intruder in order to protect the caller. That was clearly not the index the two magicians knew. That was clearly an index the church had not told them about. For an instant, just an instant, Style gritted his teeth so hard it seemed they would crack. 4Ts 931. Tens of thousands of cards flew from within his pitch-black clothes. Cards covered with flame runes spiraled around like a typhoon, and in no time at all had covered the walls, ceiling, and floor without gap. It was like Hoichi and Earless. However, he was not acting in order to save Kamiju. In an effort to save the girl named Index, Sproul pressed his hand against Kamiju's back. I do not need any vague possibilities. As long as I can erase her memories, I can save her life now. I will kill anyone to attempt to accomplish that. I will destroy anything. That is what I decided long ago. Kamiju felt that had been sliding further and further back suddenly dropped. Kamiju's feet that had been sliding further and further back suddenly stopped. And as unbelievable power caused the tatami mats his toes were digging to creak horribly. For now, Kamiju did not turn around. To hell with that. I don't care about anything like that. I don't need reasons or logic. Just answer me one thing, magicians. Kamiju sucked in a breath before continuing. Do you want to save Index or not? The magician stopped breath. You've been waiting for this the whole time, haven't you? You've been waiting for a solution where Index does not have to lose her memories, and you don't have to make an enemy of her, right? This is what kind of wonderful, happy ending that anyone would want, and where everyone is happy. Okay, I'm pretty tired, so maybe I'll continue this later in the night. Hi, MCA7. Yeah, so I think maybe part 2 will be in like a couple hours. I still have a little bit left, but I'm just really tired right now. So stay tuned for part 2.